I'm not very good at this.
I left it on, I think.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the Adams County Historical Society, its board of directors, and all the volunteers who have made this event possible, the Culture Heritage Day. The Japanese community is honored to be invited to show off a part of our heritage, to give a glimpse of the lives of those who came over to start a new life in this world. I am blessed and humbled to have been born and raised in a community that has accepted and embraced our heritage. Because of the hard work that the Issei, the first generation, and the Nisei, the second generation did, it is possible for my generation, the Sansei, and future generations to be recognized not only as Japanese, but as Americans. My grandmother, Hagino Helen Imatani, has been a strong role model in my life, and I owe much of who I am to her. She was born on April 4th, 1911, and turned 105 this year. Just think about all the changes she has seen, from horse and buggy to landing on the moon, from a crank hand telephone on the wall to the FaceTime on the iPad. She has witnessed it all. Preparing for this event, I rediscovered some old notes of hers telling her story, which I'd like to share with you. But first, a little background history. Every ethnic group has a story about coming to America, the great melting pot of the world. Ours starts with the Wakamatsu Party, the first recorded Japanese to colonize in the United States. These immigrants landed in San Francisco in 1869 and settled near Placerville, California. In 1879, Tadatsu Matsudari came to Colorado to work on the Union Pacific Railroad. He is recognized as being the first Japanese resident in Colorado and is buried at Riverside Cemetery. On May 6, 1882, Congress passed the first Chinese Exclusion Act. This act prohibited further immigration of Chinese into the United States and Hawaii. The labor contractors saw a need to fill the growing positions once held by the Chinese and looked to Japan. These contractors traveled to Japan to promote America as a land of opportunity, and many men, enticed by their offer, left Japan to make their fortune. My great-grandfather, Skeju Imatani, was among those who left his home in Japan, trading rice fields for a promise of something greater. Skeju entered the United States in San Francisco before the earthquake in 1906. Meanwhile, my great-grandmother, Yukino Bogachi Imatani, came over as a picture bride, landing in Seattle. Picture brides became popular in the early 1900s as a way for Japanese men who were unable to return to their homes in Japan to get married. These women were called picture brides because the matchmaker would select a couple to be wed based only on their pictures. Grandma's notes say, some ladies were so disappointed in the strangers' faked looks, they attempted suicide. These ladies were originally shown pictures of handsome men instead of the pictures of what they're Yukino and Skeju met up in Seattle and were married. There wasn't a church ceremony or a ritual of any kind, just a union of two strangers. The couple then moved to Utah, where Skeju owned and ran a restaurant, but ultimately they ended up farming in Colorado. The couple originally settled in Marino, a small town between Brush and Sterling, where Asako Mary was born in 1909, and Hagino, my grandma Helen, were born. Uncle Jimmy was born in 1913, Aunt Mabel in 1917, and Aunt Susie in 1921. Grandma's favorite story about Aunt Mary, who she refers to as Nesson, older sister, was her determination to go to Japanese school in Fort Lupton on horseback instead of taking a train. At that time, they were living on Sable, just south of 144th, so leaving early in the morning, Aunt Mary in the saddle and Grandma behind her, they trotted and galloped all the way to Fort Lupton. And then they had to come back. They were glad to get home, and from then on, Aunt Mary took the train. As automobiles became more available, great-grandpa and grandma bought a Ford Model T Roadster. Great-grandma became the first Japanese woman in the Brighton area to drive a car. She would often drive her friends, sometimes drunkenly, around Fort Lupton and Brighton. At that time, there was no DUIs. As Grandma Helen grew up, she took on chores to help around the farm. She learned early on how to milk cows by hand, skim the cream, and make butter. Later, when she and Grandpa were choosing a place to live, they chose the farm with a dairy. Grandma was also in charge of making sure the water barrel by the sink was always full for household use. She would use the outdoor hand pump and 2 buckets to make several trips in and out to fill the barrel. She wrote, "To this day, I do not waste water. And growing up, I always wondered why when she took a bath, she only had 2 inches of water in her bathtub." I never could get that. Speaking of baths, the Japanese are very fond of their soak in the tubs. In a story my cousin Harvey wrote for one family reunion, he says, "I still remember when we used to have a bathhouse in the old brick farmhouse. It was about 50 yards from the house. The main house that Dad built only had 1 bathroom and no shower. 10 people lived in that house. Bachan, which is Grandma, Ji-chan, Grandpa, Mom and Dad, Uncle Sam, Auntie Yock, Ed, me, Norm, and Lorraine. Can you imagine that? 1 bathroom, 10 people? The bathhouse was a small stucco building that housed a large metal horse trough. You could fill the tub up with the water from the garden hose, and outside the bathhouse was a hole that was dug underneath the metal tub. There you would fill the dirt hole with wood and light it, and this is what heated the water in the tub. Inside the tub was a floating wood platform, so that when you go in, you stood on the wood platform and it would sink to the bottom, protecting your feet from the hot metal on the bottom of the tub, as that is where the water was being heated. But Chong would all make us wash ourselves with soap and rinse off before getting into the tub because the tub was for soaking and relaxing, not cleaning. I remember it was always Bachan, me, and Ed or Norm in the tub. This is an old Japanese tradition. And then I'm wondering, with boys in the tub and little bean dinner, or they had their own little hot tub before they were a little bit before their time. As a teenager, Helen had to work alongside Mary and her dad in the fields with a horse and a 1-row cultivator. She says that Mary would take the fast horse and leave her with the slowpoke, so she was always the last one to come home at night. In the mornings before school, they had to cut and load cabbage, and Grandma remembers smelling like cabbage on the bus. Grandma Helen remembers the Great Depression and the stock market crash, but she doesn't remember it affecting the farm much. She remembers that the bank in Brighton closed for a short time and they were used ration stamps for gasoline, but the thing she remembers most is that soy sauce, a staple of Japanese cuisine, was hard to come by. She also remembers her father making bootleg sake during Prohibition and hiding it under the floorboards in their house. If there is a Japanese gathering, there is food. The Brighton ladies were well known for their delicious dishes they prepared for potluck dinners. They are the reason that we still have a shrimp and chow mein dinner at the fairgrounds every year. The biggest celebration Japanese have is New Year's. This could last off and on for a month when friends would drop over for a kanpai or a toast to the new year. On New Year's Eve, the traditional dish is soba, buckwheat noodles, for may your fortune continue. Then, on New Year's Day, the table is laid out with the traditional dishes where every dish has a special meaning. Lobster, set out whole with long horns still attached for longevity. Sea bream, which looks like red snapper for meditai, happiness. And black beans for good health. Presentation was just as important in taste. Even now, we garnish the sashimi before we serve it to Grandma, or we'll hear about it. After Grandma Helen graduated high school, the Baishakunin, or matchmaker go-between, arranged the marriage between Grandma Helen and Grandpa Eddie Okada. And they were married on a rainy day in July 1930. The ceremony was simple. She borrowed Aunt Mary's wedding dress and got her own headpiece, and the reception was at the house. Being rained on was good luck, according to great-grandpa. Grandma Helen had 4 children, my mom Jane, Paul, Gary, and Winnie. Jane and Paul were born in the house rather than a hospital, and then the family moved to California and lived there for several years, until the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941. On that December 7th day, the family was on the beach in California when a woman came up to them and said, "The Japs bombed Pearl Harbor." They immediately went home and got rid of all of their Japanese possessions by throwing them into a deep water pipe and then waited until the evacuation notice came. On February 19, 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, This allowed the Secretary of War to designate certain areas as military zones, allowing for deportation of Japanese Americans and Italian Americans into internment camps. The Okada neighbors were sent to Santa Anita Racetrack, which was the largest assembly center to hold Japanese Americans as they waited for the internment camps to be built. The horse stalls and grandstands were converted into barracks, and 500 tar paper barracks were constructed in the parking lot. The park housed 19,000 Japanese Americans between March and September of 1942 before they were assigned to various camps across the country. Meanwhile, Governor Carr of Colorado urges the residents of the state to welcome the evacuees. In one speech, he says, "They are not going to take over the vegetable business of this state. They are not going to take over the Arkansas Valley. But the Japanese are protected by the same Constitution that protects us. An American citizen of Japanese descent has the same rights as any other citizen. If you harm them, you must first harm me." Grateful for their freedom, the Okada family came back to Brighton by train to Great-Grandpa's home. Grandma Helen and Grandpa Eddie left everything behind: the cars, garage tools, clothing, and furniture, taking only what they could carry. Not everyone had the same beliefs as Governor Carr, and there were still some anti-Japanese sentiments in Colorado after Pearl Harbor. These feelings were shared by some, but not all the people of Brighton. Negative articles appeared in the Brighton Blade, but neighbors and landowners who personally knew a Japanese person were not taken by the racist comments or calls for action. In 1945, the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. My grandma's notes say, "Grandpa Zeddy's father was on guard duty at Hiroshima when the bombs fell and was killed. Grandma's mother and sister, who had a baby on her back, went searching for him in the black rain, as they called it. The rain was black from the burning ashes and fires. Grandma's Okadas had a bamboo forest on their place, and many of the wounded people from the attack came to it as shelter." 110,000 Japanese Americans living on the mainland United States, comprised of 3 generations, the Issei, Nisei, and Sansei, were imprisoned in relocation camps with hundreds of hastily built barracks surrounded by barbed wire and guard towers with 24-hour surveillance. 16-year-old Bob Sakata, 20-year-old Rose Kubo Fujisaki, and infant Jack Tsunahara were 3 of the 110,000 interned. Bob and his father, brother Harry, and sisters were forced to live in a horse stall at a former racetrack in San Francisco and later transported to extreme desert conditions in the camp in Topaz, Utah. Rose Fujisaki arrived in Idaho, located a few thousand miles from her home in Portland, Oregon, with her mother, father, and 2 sisters. They were transported by cattle car, bringing only personal items that they could carry in 2 suitcases and wearing layers and layers of unpacked coats, gloves, and hats. Her life in camp, including the memories of her first lunch of canned salmon, kidney beans, and coffee, are expressed in her written diary displayed in the Cultural Center. Jack Tsunahara was a 2-month-old infant when his parents, Jack and Mary, who immigrated and came in through Ellis Island, reported to Arizona. Mary, not being of Japanese descent, elected to enter the camp when her husband was ordered to report to one of the camps located, ordered to report. One of the largest camps located in Crystal City, Texas, also held some Germans and Italian American citizens deemed enemy aliens. The camp near Santa Fe, New Mexico, housed 21 internees, all of whom were Issei men, while a camp in another Texas city housed only women. Other camps were Lake Tulane in Manzanar, California, Topaz in Utah, Boston and Gill River in Arizona, Minidoka in Idaho, Heart Mountain in Wyoming, Jerome, known as Denson, and Rower in Arkansas, and Grenada, known as Amachi in Colorado. Most inmates were transported to their camps by train in an assembly center between April and September of 1942. The camps were usually surrounded by barbed wire, guarded by armed sentries, and although the sentries were presumably in place to protect those from hostile outsiders, the guns were usually pointed inward in the camps instead of away from them. Conditions in the camps and the experience of the Japanese American inmates vary greatly. While not having the severity and horrendous treatment as the concentration camps in Europe, internees reported individual beatings, unlawful threats, questionable rules, solitary confinement, and other forms of mistreatment by camp guards. The WRA, the War Relocation Authority, attempted to create camp communities that resemble normal communities to the greatest extent possible. Thus, each camp had schools, hospitals, a newspaper, and some degree of self-government, and some post officials and canteens post offices and canteens to purchase personal items. At the same time, life was anything but normal. The Issei parents saw their newfound freedom arriving as immigrants from Japan and establishing businesses, careers, and property in various cities abruptly taken from them. The Nisei, many in their teens and early 20s, were given the responsibility of family caregivers in forced confinement. These tensions, coupled with choices made by the WRA officials administering the camps, led to a great deal of conflict within the camps and to such explosions as the Manzanar incident and the Boston strike. As World War II raged on, a committee formed by the American Chief of Staff met to consider the formation of a small Japanese-American military unit. In early 1943, the call went out for volunteers for the 442 Regiment. Immediately, 10,000 Hawaiian Nisei volunteered, and nearly 2,700 were accepted for induction. On the mainland, of the 1,250 Nisei volunteers, 800 were accepted. Their motto, "Go for broke," came from a Hawaiian crapshooters expression meaning to shoot the works or put everything on the line. Their story and their medals of honor to become one of the U.S. Army's most highly decorated regiments can be seen in the 442 display in the Cultural Hall. Jack Tsunohara, raised in camp as one of the many infants and children who grew up under extreme wartime abnormal conditions, has the most vivid memories after the war ended. He and his family relocated to Denver, where Governor Ralph Carr became a champion for Japanese-American civil rights, declaring Colorado a safe haven. Many of the Japanese Americans became residents of Colorado, particularly in Brighton and Fort Lupton, because of the tremendous farming and agricultural opportunities. Their stories and survivors of success are cataloged in Dan Blagan's book, Our American Journey, which is for sale in the gift shop. Commercial. And is dedicated to the Issei and Nisei, without whom this journey would not have been possible. In 1948, the Nisei Women's Club was organized mostly as a social club where women could get away from their normal duties and enjoy each other's company. In 1950, the Brighton Japanese American Association was formed. I guess the men didn't want to be left out. These organizations, once separate and now combined, have been instrumental in keeping the Japanese heritage alive in the community. One of the cabinet positions of the BJAA is sports. This important position reminds us of how the sporting activities kept the community together. There was the bowling league, the ski trips, basketball, and of course baseball. And Walter will talk about baseball. So, where even in the internment camps, baseball gave people something to cheer about. It wasn't all play. The Issei and Nisei were hard workers. Somehow my dad's parents were able to help the boys start their own business. Uncle Mike had the Terrace Inn, my Uncle Tosh had the Safari and the Motel in Lyman, and my dad owned the Snack Basket in Commerce Cities. Families seemed to work together in their businesses. The Kitayama brothers, Horiyuki brothers, and Kagawa brothers had or still have greenhouses. And then there were the farmers. So I'll let Bob Sakata talk about that. And he still goes to work every single day. I see his truck at the office.